Hi everyone, welcome back to Radio Night Crime. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and jump into tonight's case. Story 1. The incident occurred in 2013. The victim was a flight attendant for Dragonair. After leaving home for work on the day of the incident, her family and boyfriend were unable to contact her. Later, her family discovered she had stopped breathing inside a wardrobe at home. Who was the perpetrator? How could he hide the body in the victim's own home without anyone knowing? The victim was a flight attendant named Chinmani. She was 26 years old, living with her parents and two younger sisters in a two-bedroom apartment. Her parents occupied one room while she shared the other with her sisters. After graduating from university, Chinmani became a flight attendant for Dragon Airlines, an airline specializing in domestic flights within China. On December 4, 2013, Chinmani was scheduled to fly to Changsha, Hunan. She had to return to the airport for check-in at 4:30 p.m. that same day. She went to work as usual. Due to the unpredictable work schedules of flight attendants, sometimes they need to stay at their destination for a few days. Other times they might return on the same day. The aviation industry has many terms for work processes. For example, staying at the destination for more than 8 hours is called a layover, returning on the same day is a turnaround, resting for a few hours at the destination is split duty, and not showing up for work is no-show. Therefore, even if Chinmani explained her work schedule to her family, they might not fully understand the timing of a flight attendant's job. After Chinmani went to work on December 4th, her family couldn't contact her for several days afterwards, and she didn't return home. However, her family didn't suspect anything because it was possible that Chinmani's flight required her to stay at the destination for a few days. At this time, she was also dating a new boyfriend named Hu Huacheng, so she might have been at his place, but he couldn't reach Mani either. But Hu Huacheng knew that Chinmani was supposed to return on December 4th, landing in Hong Kong at 10:30 p.m. So, he was in Hong Kong at 11:30 p.m. waiting for her. He also sent 2 messages via WhatsApp to Chinmani, asking if she had arrived in Hong Kong. Strangely, she didn't reply. Typically, upon landing, she would send a message to Hu Huacheng to say she had landed safely and arrived at the airport. However, even without receiving a message from his girlfriend, Hu Huacheng wasn't too worried, thinking she was just too tired after landing. But after 2 days with no response from his girlfriend, he asked Chinmani's friends if something had happened. Her friends couldn't reach her either. Hu Huacheng and Chinmani had only been dating for a month, so he didn't inquire with her family about her situation. He thought flight attendants might have unusual and unpredictable work schedules. Until the evening of December 7th, Chinmani's younger sister received a call from her colleague. The colleague said that today was supposed to be Chinmani's workday, but she didn't show up, so they called her sister to check on her. At this point, the sister began to feel something was very wrong, and worried because her sister was very responsible about work and wouldn't miss it without notice. Chinmani's sister then accessed the internal network of Dragonair and checked her sister's work schedule. She found out that on December 7th, the status was no-show, meaning she didn't go to work. Now she realized the situation was becoming abnormal. She approached her sister's bed and noticed that Chinmani's blanket was bloated as if something was underneath. When she lifted it, she found Chinmani's work items, which she would not go to work without. However, the sister couldn't find the suitcase Chinmani usually took to work. Everything was very strange. Afterwards, she woke up their parents in the other room. They started searching the entire house. A moment later, Chinmani's father suddenly shouted, "Here it is! Here it is!" Her sister thought her father had found her sister's luggage. They rushed back to the room to see what was happening. But looking inside from the doorway, they saw no luggage. The entire family froze, because what they saw was Chinmani's body inside the wardrobe. Why was Chinmani murdered in her own home? How long had she been in the wardrobe? In reality, Chinmani shared a room with her sister, but each had their own wardrobe. So her sister had no reason to touch Chinmani's wardrobe. That might be why the sister didn't discover her. The family immediately called the police. When the police and rescue team arrived at the scene, they confirmed that Chinmani had passed away. At the time of discovery, Chinmani was still wearing her flight attendant uniform with the airline scarf around her neck. After a preliminary examination, the forensic team concluded she had died about 3 to 4 days earlier, on December 4th. Why, if she had left home to go to work that day, was her body found at home? In fact, Mani didn't go to work that day. According to airline data, Mani had suddenly requested a day off at noon on December 4th. Upon reviewing the security camera footage of the building, Mani did not leave the house that day. However, there was a suspicious man who appeared. At 2 p.m. on December 4th, he entered the building and stayed for 3 hours. This man was Chun Mani's ex-boyfriend, Mo Zhongxian. The police increasingly believed that he was the one who took Chun Mani's life. Why did he do this? What was his motive for committing the crime? It turns out Chun Mani and Mo Zhongxian met at the end of 2012 in a bar. Perhaps his sophisticated, intellectual appearance in a suit won Chun Mani over. However, in contrast to his polished exterior, Mo Zhongxian actually lived in an ordinary apartment and worked as a real estate agent. Mani didn't mind much since she thought he had talent and could rise from zero. But Mani was mistaken. Mo Zhongxian had a very irresponsible work attitude, often skipping work. Moreover, he was addicted to gambling and had amassed a lot of debt. This led to him frequently asking Mani for loans. He even demanded that she withdraw all the money from her credit card for him to spend. His character was also very aggressive. He would use violence against Mani if his demands weren't met. After dating for about 9 months, she couldn't take it anymore. She arranged to meet Mo Zhongxian in a hotel to propose breaking up. But unexpectedly, in the hotel room, Mo Zhongxian covered her mouth and strangled Chun Mani, even threatening to harm her family if she wanted to break up. The weak Mani could only continue dating this man. The next day, they moved to another hotel to continue their conversation, where Chun Mani took the opportunity to inform hotel security about the assault. After security got involved, they called the police and they officially broke up. Chun Mani thought she could escape his control and start a new life. After this, the police arrested Mo Zhongxian, but he was only warned and sentenced to 1 year of community service. This might have fueled his anger and desire for revenge against Chun Mani. After the breakup, Chun Mani immediately blocked Mo Zhongxian on Facebook and tried to overcome the trauma he had caused her. In November, she started a new relationship with her current boyfriend, Hu Huaqing. But unfortunately, Mo Zhongxian didn't give up. He created a new fake profile to stalk Mani's activities. Seeing her with a new relationship, he became jealous. He believed she had betrayed and hurt him. From then on, he began planning his revenge. He knew that Mani's house would be empty at noon. All he needed was to find a day when she would leave in the afternoon. It took him a month to find the right day to act, which was December 4th. On that day, Chun Mani had to check in at the airport before 4:30 p.m. She usually took the bus to work. So, on December 4th, before 2 p.m., he entered the apartment building where she lived. He waited outside Chun Mani's door until she left her house. Finally, Mo Zhongxian succeeded according to plan. As soon as she stepped outside, Mo Zhongxian overpowered Chun Mani, forcing her back into the house. Once inside, he made her call the company to request a day off. Later in court, the recording of Chun Mani asking for leave was played, and people noticed her voice sounded hoarse. Her sister also stated that her sister's voice sounded very shaky, suggesting she was very scared. After securing the leave, Mo Zhongxian attacked Mani until she was dead. He then hid her body in the wardrobe. He was careful to put away her company jacket, high heels, and purse in the drawer under her bed, and hid her luggage on top of the wardrobe. To avoid risks, Mo Zhongxian tried to clean up the crime scene to erase any traces. From the security footage, one could see he was very calm and not at all in a hurry. When Mo Zhongxian left the crime scene, he didn't immediately flee, but went to withdraw money first. However, the money wasn't from his card, but from Chun Mani's. Before hiding her bag, he didn't forget to take her card and phone. Fortunately, she had changed her ATM password, so he couldn't withdraw the remaining money. After failing to withdraw money, he sold her mobile phone. Once everything was prepared, Mo Zhongxian immediately left Hong Kong for Shenzhen. But oddly, he returned to Hong Kong on the same day. On December 5th, he attended a friend's gathering as if nothing had happened. He was a member of a basketball team, but he was an hour late that day. He only sat and watched without playing. When teammates asked what was wrong, Mo Zhongxian said his leg was hurting. They also noticed 2 scratches on his neck. On December 6th, 2 days after the incident, Mo Zhongxian called a schoolmate of his, saying something big had happened, and they should meet to discuss the details. When they met that evening, when asked what had happened, he played guessing games with his friend. In the meantime, he hinted that he had taken Chun Mani's life. He felt heartbroken that she had moved on to a new relationship. If he couldn't have her, no one else could. When he was young, a cousin wanted to borrow his video game console. Not wanting to lend it, he immediately threw it away. 3 days after the crime, Mo Zhongxian also met with another close friend and confessed what he had done to Chinmani. Around 10 p.m., Mo Zhongxian took what he had taken from his parents and fled to Shenzhen with several $100,000. Only 4 hours after Mo Zhongxian escaped, at around 2 a.m. on December 8th, Chinmani's family discovered her body. At this point, the police realized Mo Zhongxian had fled to mainland China, and they immediately issued an arrest warrant with a 300,000 renminbi reward. They also informed the Chinese mainland police about Mo Zhongxian. During this time, Mo Zhongxian's image appeared daily in newspapers and on various social media platforms. Because of the enormous public attention, he didn't dare go outside. He lived off the more than $10,000 he got from his parents. But not long after, Mo Zhongxian couldn't bear staying at home all the time. So he started going out, visiting different bars. Later, Mo Zhongxian became more reckless, traveling to various places in Guangdong province. A year after the crime, Mo Zhongxian met a woman at a bar and began a new relationship. They had a child in 2015. Mo Zhongxian was always unemployed, and the money from his parents was nearly gone. He took a risk by working illegally at a factory. Initially, Mo Zhongxian worked hard, but soon he fell back into old habits. There were rumors that his parents had secretly supported him, as they were in the business of transporting goods between China and Hong Kong. It's unclear if this was true, but he was certainly living in a 1,000-square-meter villa owned by his new partner. When he was out of money, he just needed to ask her. What was more condemnable was that he used this money to go out, flirting with other women. He lived carelessly, as if he had completely forgotten the murder he had committed. On October 29, 2016, Mo Zhongxian met a woman he was pursuing at a familiar hair salon. After finishing his hair wash, and while preparing to dry his hair, a police team suddenly surrounded and arrested him. Mo Zhongxian, the salon employees, and his girlfriend were all thrown into confusion. It was later said that Mo Zhongxian's father-in-law knew from the beginning that he was a murderer from Hong Kong. Because whenever asked about his past, Mo Zhongxian always dodged the question. He always found ways to avoid using his personal information for legal procedures. The strangest thing was that he always paid for everything in cash. The father-in-law, not wanting his granddaughter to grow up without a father, turned a blind eye at first. But later, he discovered that Mo Zhongxian was not only lazy, but also unfaithful to his daughter, often associating with various women. Therefore, he decided to report Mo Zhongxian to ensure he was punished by the law. When the police caught Mo Zhongxian after 3 months, they handed him over to the Hong Kong police. He did not deny killing the innocent woman, but lied about the details and process of the act. First, Mo Zhongxian claimed that on the day of the incident, he went to Chinmani's house to beg her to get back together because he truly loved her. After an hour of pleading, Mani finally relented and agreed. He even insisted that Chinmani had arranged to have dinner with him that evening and had voluntarily requested leave, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. Then, Mo Zhongxian continued to say that while she was in the bathroom, he secretly checked her phone and found she was chatting with another man. He confronted her, and she said something that provoked him. He claimed she then tried to strangle him, and he only reacted by strangling her back until she was on the ground. When she stopped moving, he realized he had killed her accidentally. During the trial, they also called the female schoolmate Mo Zhongxian had spoken to. She confirmed that he had confessed to murdering Chinmani. Faced with this accusation, Mo Zhongxian vehemently denied it. No matter how much he tried to defend his actions, the truth remained the truth. Ultimately, the court decided that Mo Zhongxian was guilty of murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment under the law. Story 2. The story I'm going to tell you what happened in 2007. An American student studying abroad in Italy was involved in a murder case. Since the incident occurred, it has created a chaotic and confusing situation. Numerous heated debates have erupted. The number of supporters and detractors seem to be evenly split. This case has been likened to the O.J. Simpson trial of 1994, considered the trial of the century. The case took place in 2007 in Perugia. This is a central city in Italy, characterized by its hills and beautiful medieval architecture when viewed from above. At that time, Perugia had a population of about 150,000, with over 14% of them being students. Today's main character is Amanda Knox, born in 1987. At the age of 20, she was studying at the University of Washington in the USA before becoming an exchange student in Perugia, Italy. Her original plan was to study in Italy for 1 year, but one major event changed her life. On September 20th, 2007, Amanda arrived in Perugia, attending the University for Foreigners of Perugia. She lived in an apartment just 200 meters from the school, surrounded by picturesque scenery. The apartment was 2 stories but not interconnected. So to reach the second floor, one had to use an external staircase, a characteristic feature of Italian architecture. The apartment was quite spacious, with 4 bedrooms and all amenities. Amanda shared the place with 3 other girls, one of whom was a British exchange student named Meredith Kircher. The other 2 were Italian. Not long after settling in, Amanda found a part-time job at a local bar to work after classes. The bar owner, named Lumumba, had a very good first impression of Amanda, so he hired her immediately. Amanda, with her cheerful and friendly personality, was very popular among the bar's customers. After a while, Amanda gradually adapted to life in Italy and developed a good relationship with her roommates, especially with Meredith Kircher. On October 25th, both attended a concert where they met a handsome Italian guy named Raphael Sollecito. Amanda was impressed by Raphael because he looked like Harry Potter, a character from a movie she loved. They started dating after that. From then on, Amanda began spending many nights at Raphael's apartment since their homes were just a 5-minute walk apart. October 31st was Halloween, and that evening students organized a big party. Amanda's roommate Meredith dressed up as a vampire and happily took photos with her friends. However, she had no idea that those would be the last photos of her life. After that day, there was a long holiday for students. The 2 Italian roommates went back to their families and were not in the apartment. Meanwhile, Amanda was enjoying her new relationship with her boyfriend. On that day, Meredith had gone to a friend's house to watch a movie and returned to her apartment at 9 p.m., and what happened after that changed her fate. On November 2nd, 2007, a Friday in the morning, a woman found 2 cell phones in her yard. She found this very odd and handed them over to the postal police. The postal police are a law enforcement agency related to postal services and telecommunications. Very quickly, the postal police traced one of the phones back to the apartment where Amanda was living. The location where the phone was found was only 500 meters from Amanda's apartment. Afterwards, the postal police brought the phone to the apartment to return it, and when they arrived, they saw a man and a woman standing at the door, looking very worried, who were Amanda and her boyfriend, Raphael. Amanda told the police that when she came home, she found the front door wide open, and Meredith's bedroom door was locked. She tried calling, but Meredith didn't answer, so she got very worried. At 12:30 p.m. that same day, Amanda's boyfriend, Raphael, called the Italian police, reporting an emergency. The police immediately arrived at Amanda's apartment, forced their way into the innermost room, which was Meredith's locked bedroom. After successfully breaking down the door, they realized this was a murder scene. The room was extremely messy, with items scattered everywhere, bloodstains all around, and Meredith lying motionless on the floor. Her body was covered with a duvet, with a deep wound on her neck and no signs of life whatsoever. The police immediately secured the crime scene and took Meredith's body to the morgue for an autopsy. Meanwhile, the police also began investigating and collecting evidence at the scene. From Meredith's location to the apartment's main entrance, a trail of bloody footprints was discovered. Blood was found in several places in the bathroom, such as on the rug, the shower head, the light switch, and the sink, with feces still in the toilet that hadn't been flushed. The bedroom window was smashed, with a stone on the floor, seemingly thrown from outside. At the scene, they also found a bra with the straps cut off. The autopsy report later showed that Meredith died from a very deep neck wound, which caused excessive blood loss leading to death. There were signs of sexual assault on the victim, and male DNA was collected from inside her body. Following this, the police took statements from the first people at the scene, Amanda and Raphael. According to Amanda's statement on November 1st, before the murder occurred, she was at her boyfriend Raphael's apartment, watching a movie called Angels and Demons. While they were watching, the bar owner, Lumumba, texted her saying there were few customers at the bar, so Amanda didn't need to come to work. After that, Amanda spent the night at her boyfriend's place. The next morning, when she returned to her apartment, she found the door open. Upon entering, she saw nothing unusual, so she went into her room. Everything seemed normal. Then she went to the bathroom to get ready for a shower. She saw a few drops of blood in the sink, but thought it might just be from someone with a minor injury, so she didn't pay much attention. But after finishing her shower and stepping onto the bath mat, she noticed a large blood stain, felt something was wrong, got scared, dressed quickly, and walked to her boyfriend's house. They then returned together to Amanda's apartment to see what was happening. When they got back, they noticed a lot of blood on the floor, tried to open Meredith's door but couldn't, so they called the police. From the preliminary investigation, the police found the apartment window was broken, with a stone on the floor, but oddly no signs of climbing, suggesting someone had staged the scene. Upon reviewing the investigation day's video, the police noticed Amanda and Raphael continuously comforting each other and exchanging affectionate gestures. In such a situation, these behaviors seemed inappropriate. The couple was the first to arrive at the scene, making Amanda and Raphael the prime suspects of the police. In the following days, the police interrogated the two several times. Raphael said that on the night before the murder, Amanda was with him all night, but the police didn't believe his statement and continuously pressured him. They told Raphael, "Your American girlfriend is very good at lying. She's always deceiving you. The situation is very dangerous now. If you don't tell the truth, you'll go down with her." Afterwards, Raphael changed his statement, admitting he had lied, that everything before was because Amanda had made him say so. That night, he was alone at home, and Amanda didn't come over until 1 a.m. In another interrogation room, the police examined Amanda's phone, discovering a message where the bar owner told Amanda she didn't need to work, and she replied in Italian. Amanda said it was just a greeting, but the police thought otherwise, saying the message implied Amanda would meet her boss that evening. As the investigation deepened, the police grew more suspicious of Amanda. Their manner of questioning her became more aggressive. They even used physical force to make her reveal the truth. At that time, Amanda was just a 20-year-old student. Under police pressure, she was nearly collapsing. She remembered that night she hadn't stayed at her boyfriend's all the time, but had returned to her apartment once. When she returned, she saw a man in a brown leather jacket, and was certain it was the bar owner, Lumumba. Then she heard Meredith scream. Amanda told the police that Lumumba was the one who murdered Meredith. The police began to feel inconsistencies in all three statements, so they detained Amanda, Raphael, and Lumumba. The media at the time also reported extensively, creating significant public attention. Everyone thought the murderer had been caught. However, Lumumba was quickly released after providing a solid alibi. So why did Amanda claim in her statement that she saw Lumumba? This action made her even more suspicious. Later, the police obtained a search warrant for Raphael's house, where they found a small knife in his kitchen. Amanda's fingerprints were on the handle, and Meredith's DNA was on the blade, matching the murder weapon. This investigation yielded good evidence to charge Amanda. When this news was released, Amanda became the center of attention, with everyone believing she was the killer. Because of Amanda's beautiful appearance, some newspapers dubbed her the angelic killer. With the progress of the investigation, the police found another man's DNA on the victim, a man named Rudy Guide, who also left fingerprints at the scene and traces in the toilet. According to preliminary investigations, Rudy had a criminal record for illegal entry. After the murder, he fled to Germany, but was quickly arrested by German police and extradited back to Italy. In his statement, Rudy admitted to having sex with Meredith that night, but denied killing her, saying he was in the bathroom when he heard screams. He immediately ran out to see what was happening and saw a man running out of the door, not clearly seeing the face. Afterwards, he found Meredith bleeding profusely, but, out of fear, he also fled the scene. His initial statement was such, and when the trial took place, Rudy added to his statement that he had seen Amanda jumping out of the window. The trial ended with Rudy being sentenced to 30 years for the murder of Meredith. But after a few years, he appealed, and his sentence was reduced to 16 years. Although Rudy Guide was convicted, the matter was not over. All eyes were still on Amanda. After more than a year of thorough investigation, the prosecution finally had enough evidence to formally charge Amanda and her boyfriend, Raphael. On January 16, 2009, more than a year after the murder, the trial officially began. Defendants Amanda Knox and Raphael Solicito were charged with the murder of Meredith. The prosecution presented evidence, portraying Amanda as a morally corrupt girl who often brought young men back to her place. From here, we can connect this with other evidence as described by the prosecution. That night, after watching a movie with her boyfriend, Meredith returned to her apartment and saw Amanda, Raphael, and Rudy having fun together. Amanda asked Meredith if she wanted to join them, but Meredith expressed disinterest and criticized Amanda. Feeling insulted, they began to argue, leading to physical conflict. Then Raphael pulled out a knife from his pocket to threaten Meredith, and they ultimately caused her death. The prosecution continued to list several other pieces of evidence. First, the weapon causing the neck wound on Meredith was a small knife, matching one found in Raphael's house, with Meredith's DNA also taken from the blade. Second, in the victim's room, they found a bra clasp from which Raphael's DNA was detected. Third, Amanda's statement about hearing Meredith's screams and seeing the bar owner Lumumba at the scene was contradicted by Lumumba's solid alibi. It was clear Amanda had been lying consistently. Her statements were entirely unreliable. Fourth, there was a blood stain on the bathroom mat. The blood was the victim's, and its size was consistent with Raphael's footprint. Fifth, near the entrance of the apartment, the glass of a bedroom window was broken by a stone, but no signs of entry from outside were found, indicating someone had staged a false scene. On December 4, 2009, the day of the verdict, outside the courtroom was a large crowd of journalists and the public eagerly awaiting the outcome. Finally, the court concluded by sentencing defendants Amanda Knox and Raphael Salcedo to 26 and 25 years in prison, respectively. When the verdict was announced, the majority of the public supported the outcome, but Americans on the other side of the Atlantic disagreed. They believed the Italian police had been seriously subjective during the investigation, always assuming Amanda's guilt. Even some celebrities spoke in support of Amanda, saying she was not involved in the crime, and that her statements were the result of hours of psychological torture by the police. On November 24, 2010, 3 years after the incident, the Italian Court of Appeals reopened the case to re-examine it. The defense presented several counter-evidences, first regarding the knife considered the murder weapon. The DNA on the blade was not fully extracted, only a very small amount was retrieved, making the conclusion that this DNA belonged to Meredith extremely vague. Moreover, the knife only resembled the murder weapon and couldn't be 100% confirmed as the tool used to kill Meredith. Next, a bra clasp found in Meredith's room. In reality, it was discovered 47 days after the crime, which was too long after the incident. Raphael's DNA was found on the clasp, but also 2 other unidentified male DNAs, indicating significant contamination of the evidence. From the video footage recorded by the police, it was evident that the police's investigation and evidence collection were not professional. In Perugia, such serious criminal cases were rare, so the police lacked much experience in handling them. The police not only didn't change shoes, but also didn't wear gloves. Dozens of people had entered the crime scene, severely damaging it. Evidence sent for lab testing was not individually sealed, but piled together, causing cross-contamination of DNA. After recomparison, the bloody footprints at the scene couldn't be definitively linked to Raphael. Regarding her false statement, Amanda said she was subjected to police violence at the time, with continuous pressure until she said something that satisfied them. On October 3, 2011, the retrial took place. The result was that the Italian Court of Appeals found the evidence insufficient to convict Amanda Knox and Raphael Salcedo, and they were freed. After the verdict, Amanda was moved to tears. However, the majority of Italians outside the courtroom couldn't accept this result, still certain that Amanda and Raphael were the killers, hoping the court would re-examine the case again. Afterwards, Amanda was released and returned to her hometown of Seattle, USA. But on January 30, 2014, over 6 years after the incident, the Italian Court of Appeals overturned the acquittal of Amanda and Raphael, convicting them again. Amanda's sentence was increased from 26 to 28 years and 6 months, but by then, Amanda ignored it, stating she never wanted to return to Italy again. Meanwhile, Raphael returned to Italy to fight the murder charges against him. The reason the court gave at this time was that Rudy Guide had been convicted of murder. This was not a solo act, and Rudy had not opposed or tried to prove that Amanda and Raphael were not at the scene at that time. Therefore, it was clear that Amanda and Raphael should be convicted like Rudy. But once again, on March 27, 2015, the case was reversed. The Italian Supreme Court dismissed the murder charges against Amanda and Raphael, announcing that the case would officially close and no further appeals would be considered. And thus, the case that disrupted Britain, the USA, and Italy for 8 years finally ended. However, the debate over whether Amanda was a murderer never stopped. Story 3. If you visit Paris, you'll definitely want to check out this place, the Louvre Museum. Situated on the northern bank of the Seine, it lies in the heart of the splendid city of Paris. This museum, alongside the British Museum in London, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. Petersburg is considered one of the 4 largest museums in the world. Each year, nearly 10 million visitors flock to the Louvre to marvel at the heights of European art, with artifacts from ancient civilizations and European art spanning from the 13th century to the mid-19th century. Among these, there are 3 renowned treasures: the Venus de Milo statue by the ancient Greek sculptor Alexandros, the headless winged Victory of Samothrace, sculpted from marble, and the painting of the Mona Lisa, a masterpiece by the artist Leonardo da Vinci. However, one day, the painting of the Mona Lisa was stolen in a manner so simple it's hard to believe. Who is responsible for this act, and what was the outcome of this case? At the Louvre, the Mona Lisa is displayed independently on a large wall, protected by thick glass and equipped with a safety isolation setup in front. This represents the highest level of protection for artworks in this museum. Visitors can only admire Mona Lisa's captivating smile from a distance. This painting isn't very large, measuring just 77 centimeters in height and 53 centimeters in width. The portrait of Mona Lisa was painted directly onto a panel of white poplar wood. Perhaps no one is unaware of the author of this masterpiece, the star Leonardo da Vinci. He is considered one of the 3 geniuses of Italian Renaissance art, alongside Raphael and Michelangelo. Da Vinci began painting the Mona Lisa around 1502, and it took him 4 years, until 1506, to complete it. The Italian artist used oil paint, paying special attention to the corners of the eyes and the mouth to convey the character's emotions. Instead of using lines, he focused on light and shadow to depict the figure. As a result, the character's image appears somewhat blurred. This was a very popular portrait painting style during the Renaissance. Later, some individuals conducted an X-ray analysis of the Mona Lisa painting, discovering over 30 ultra-thin layers of oil paint at the corners of the woman's eyes and mouth. Each layer was less than 2 micrometers thick. The artist had to wait for each layer to dry before applying the next. Thanks to this meticulous process, Mona Lisa's face became incredibly enigmatic, with a smile that seems present yet elusive. From this detail, one can clearly see Da Vinci's artistic talent. In reality, Leonardo da Vinci was not just a painter. He was an astronomer, surgeon, mathematician, architect, musician, geologist, botanist, zoologist, and an expert in many other fields. Because Da Vinci was so erudite and talented, there are even more questions about his masterpiece. Each viewer who contemplates this painting has different interpretations. Some have discovered that this could be a self-portrait of the artist, as the features of Da Vinci and Mona Lisa match perfectly when overlaid. Some even point out that the painting contains traces of extraterrestrial influence. Today, research on this painting extends beyond the field of art. Hypotheses about the Mona Lisa are increasingly numerous, making it a treasure within the art world. In fact, many years ago, this painting was not as famous. In 1911, it was stolen once. Because of this incident, many became curious about the work and came to see it for themselves. What happened? How could a thief steal this great work from the Louvre? On Monday, August 21, 1911, Paris was bustling with the start of a new work week. According to the rules, the Louvre would be closed on this day, with no visitors allowed, but staff and maintenance workers would operate as usual. For the Louvre's security team, Mondays were always a beautiful day. The guards here were mostly elderly veterans. Since the museum was closed on Mondays, with no visitors, they could afford to be a bit lazy. Vincenzo Peruggia was a temporary maintenance worker at the Louvre. That morning, he wore the familiar white museum uniform jacket. As usual, Peruggia entered the Louvre without raising any suspicion. He was familiar with every nook and cranny of the museum, knowing the exact location of each painting. At that time, the Mona Lisa was not as famous as it is now, so it was displayed alongside other ancient paintings. To the right of the Mona Lisa was the Mystical Marriage of Saint Catherine by Correggio, and to the left was another marriage painted by Titian. Perugia had a very clear target. He wanted to steal the Mona Lisa in the middle. After scanning the area and confirming no one was around, he firmly gripped the frame with both hands, skillfully and deftly taking it down. At the Louvre, staff often removed paintings for maintenance. Sometimes, paintings were even taken to studios for photography. The Mona Lisa was painted on poplar wood, not canvas, so it couldn't be rolled up and hidden on his person. To make it easier to carry, Perugia removed the frame, tossing it into a secluded corner. Every step of the theft plan went smoothly. However, as he tried to leave, he suddenly stopped because the door was locked. Realizing the key he had wouldn't open this door, Perugia used the screwdriver he had brought to force the lock. But just halfway through, he heard footsteps getting closer. He quickly turned the front of the Mona Lisa painting against the wall, hid the door handle, and sat down on the floor. At that moment, a plumber named Sauvet was coming down from the upper floor. Seeing the door handle missing, he asked Perugia about it. But of course, the thief claimed he had just arrived and knew nothing. The plumber used his own key to open the door. After exiting, he immediately locked it again. Knowing he couldn't proceed this way, Perugia decided to take a risk, choosing a path where a guard was supposed to be stationed. Fortunately, the guard was dozing off at that moment. Perugia successfully took the Mona Lisa out of the Louvre. Only 4 screws remained on the wall. However, all through that Monday, no one realized the Mona Lisa was gone. Until the next day, Tuesday, when a French painter named Louis Barroux came to the museum to sketch the Mona Lisa. As per his appointment, he discovered the painting had completely disappeared. He immediately reported it to security, and the response he got was, "Young man, don't worry. Paintings go missing all the time. Maybe someone borrowed it. I'll check again." Not long after, when someone found the empty frame in the corner of the room, the security guard finally realized the severity of the situation. The Mona Lisa had been stolen. He immediately notified the police. But with so much time having passed, the police would surely face significant challenges in recovering the artwork. The next morning, major European newspapers splashed the theft of the Mona Lisa from the Louvre across their front pages. At that time, newspapers were virtually the only means of mass communication. After the news exploded, even those without any art knowledge learned that there was a famous painting named the Mona Lisa in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Some newspapers even printed the wrong image of the painting, which indicated how little known the artwork was at that time. Overnight, almost all of Europe became aware of the existence of this painting by the genius Leonardo da Vinci, surpassing many other renowned artworks. Upon receiving the report, the Paris police immediately launched an investigation. The Louvre was closed for a week to assist in solving the case. The police found a fingerprint on the discarded frame. However, since it wasn't clear whose fingerprint it was, they collected fingerprints from all Louvre staff for a meticulous comparison to find the thief. Surprisingly, they overlooked the fingerprints of the temporary worker, Perugia, thus failing to identify the culprit. By this time, the thief had taken the painting home. Every day while eating, he would bring out the painting, admiring the beautiful Mona Lisa. Even though the painting was not large, it wasn't easy to hide. Later, the police did indeed search Perugia's house. Seeing the police arrive, he placed the painting on the table, covering it with a piece of colored cloth. After entering, they had a brief conversation. The police had no idea that the painting was just a glove length away. Indeed, the most dangerous place is often the safest. After a simple interrogation with Perugia, the investigation team crossed him off their list of suspects and left. The Paris police missed an opportunity to recover the painting. A long time passed with no progress on the case. The Paris Investigative Office was extremely disappointed for having lost such a valuable artwork from the Louvre. In the summer of 1913, exactly 2 years after the Mona Lisa was stolen, an antiquities collector named Alfredo Geri, living in Florence, Italy, received a letter signed by Leonardo V. In the letter, the person claimed to possess the original drawing of the Mona Lisa, lost by the Louvre 2 years prior. Out of patriotism, he wanted to return the painting to Italy, his homeland. He requested 50,000 lire from Geri, emphasizing that this sum was not for personal gain, but to bring the painting back to its roots. Clearly, Leonardo V was just a pseudonym, an abbreviation for Leonardo da Vinci. Reading the letter, Geri understood this was no small matter. His intuition told him the writer was not a fraud. He quickly wrote back, agreeing to a time and place to meet for the exchange. They met at a hotel. When the other person took the Mona Lisa out of a backpack, Jerry used a magnifying glass to carefully compare the painting with a photograph. More than anyone, he knew that the natural cracks in the paint layers were like the fingerprints of the painting, difficult to counterfeit. The other person turned the painting over, asserting, "You don't need to worry, this is genuine, look, this is Da Vinci's signature." Jerry meticulously compared them, and was incredibly moved to find that each crack in the painting matched the photo he had. This was indeed the Mona Lisa, painted by the master Da Vinci over 400 years ago, unmistakable. He told the person opposite him, "I'll go prepare the money, we must handle this painting with care." The other agreed, but after leaving, Jerry didn't go to prepare the money. Instead, he went straight to the police station to report the crime. 2 Italian police officers then went to the hotel to arrest the thief on the spot. And of course, this person was none other than Perugia, the temporary Louvre employee who had stolen the painting 2 years earlier. At the trial, Perugia confessed, while working at the Louvre, he had fallen in love with the Mona Lisa in the painting. Even his later girlfriend bore a resemblance to the woman in the painting. He explained that his theft was motivated by patriotism, a desire to reclaim the painting that Napoleon had supposedly stolen from Italy, his homeland, arguing that the masterpiece shouldn't remain in France. After hearing Perugia's passionate defense in court, the Italian public rallied behind him. They viewed this thief as a national hero. Many sent him letters of condolence and gifts, marking the first time in history that a thief received such widespread support. However, Perugia clearly hadn't studied the artwork thoroughly. The Mona Lisa was not stolen by Napoleon. In the later years of his life, Leonardo da Vinci accepted an invitation from King François I of France. He crossed the Alps from Italy to France, bringing with him many of his favorite paintings, including the Mona Lisa. After da Vinci's death in France, King François I purchased all of his paintings. The Mona Lisa was kept at the Château de Fontainebleau. After the Louvre was completed, the painting was displayed there. But at that time, the Italian public didn't understand this history and blindly supported Perugia. Even the judge believed that Perugia stole the painting out of love for his country, sentencing him to 1 year and 15 days in prison. However, Perugia served only 7 months before being released. Subsequently, the Italian parliament held heated discussions on whether to return or keep the painting. Ultimately, they agreed to return the work to France. The news that Italy would return the Mona Lisa to France shocked all of Europe. Within just a few years, the Mona Lisa had made headlines hundreds of times. The case should have ended there. More than 20 years after the Mona Lisa theft, in 1932, in a bar in Casablanca, North Africa, a conman named Eduardo de Valferno, while drunk, revealed to an American journalist named Carl Decker that he was actually the mastermind behind the Mona Lisa theft. Perugia was just hired by him to carry it out. Valferno thought he couldn't make money by copying the Mona Lisa, so he hired Perugia, a Louvre employee, to do the deed. He didn't care where the painting would end up. All he needed was for Da Vinci's Mona Lisa to disappear, so he could make a fortune selling copies, claiming that the painting he had was the original stolen from the Louvre. Valferno found 6 buyers in America, successfully selling 6 fake Mona Lisas, making a significant sum. However, since the incident had occurred so long ago, no one could verify Valferno's story. Oddly enough, even 100 years after the theft of the century, some still insist that the Mona Lisa they own is the original. This is also why many believe that the one in the Louvre might be a fake. Nevertheless, the Mona Lisa has become increasingly famous. This masterpiece still holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered. It was this theft, over 100 years ago, that brought such attention to this painting, lasting to this day. If asked what the most famous painting in the world is, many would immediately respond, it's Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Story 4. The story unfolds in Loei Province, located in northeastern Thailand, 260 kilometers from Bangkok. It is one of the largest first-level administrative divisions in the Land of Smiles. Wangsaphong District, situated in the southwest of Loei, is surrounded by mountains, lush forests, and streams due to its nature reserves. In November 2023, at Village No. 1 in Wangsaphong District, a wedding was held with lavish and spectacular decorations. The groom, Shacharong, at 29 years old, was a disabled athlete. The bride, Kanchana, at 44, was a local beautician. They were 15 years apart in age and had been living together for 3 years before tying the knot. At the wedding, both the groom, Shacharong, and the bride, Kanchana, wore traditional Thai attire. Under the witness of numerous friends and family, they were in the midst of a ceremony to officially become husband and wife. However, no one could have anticipated that amidst this joyful wedding atmosphere, a horrifying event would suddenly occur, turning the wedding day into a nightmare for all who witnessed it. What exactly happened on this most significant day of their lives? Was there some conflict between the bride and groom that turned the happy day into the most sorrowful and tragic day for those left behind? On November 25, 2023, a Saturday in Thailand, November is the cool season, so there was little rain and the climate was quite pleasant. That morning in village number 1, Wang Nam Keo District, Nakhon Ratchasima Province, the groom Shattrong led a lively wedding procession to fetch the bride Kanchana from Wang Sa Phung District. After the bride fetching ceremony concluded, according to local customs, a religious ceremony was held at the bride's house to pray for the couple, wishing for their marriage to be blessed with happiness and fulfillment. The official wedding ceremony took place at 4 p.m. The bride and groom bowed before their parents. In the cheerful atmosphere of the wedding, witnessed by many friends and relatives, Shattrong and Kanchana exchanged wedding rings. This was the third year they had lived together before officially entering into marriage. Those years had helped them build a solid emotional foundation, understanding each other before becoming husband and wife. After the wedding ceremony, the evening banquet began. Everyone enjoyed the local delicacies, laughing and sharing the best wishes for the bride and groom. However, right in the midst of this lively atmosphere, it seemed the groom and bride had a dispute. Later, people saw Shattrong sitting alone at the dining table, looking sad and not talking to anyone. Some guests noticed Shattrong seemed off, but thought perhaps he had drunk too much, causing him to lose his composure. After the argument, people continued to enjoy the delicious food. Around 11:30 p.m. that night, Shattrong suddenly stood up and walked straight to the door. This unusual action immediately caught the attention of those around him, making the atmosphere quiet. Some guests began to whisper, and 2 guests approached the bride, Kanchana, to ask why the groom was behaving this way. At that moment, Shattrong returned to the party with a somber expression, one hand in his pocket. As he appeared, the whispering among the guests stopped, and everyone observed every move he made. Not long after, Shattrong suddenly pulled out a gun from his pocket and fired 12 shots in just 20 seconds. The bride and several people nearby fell, screams and cries for help rang out, and all the guests started to run. Shattrong then took his own life. When the groom collapsed, some guests, having calmed down, called the police. The police arrived at the scene immediately. They were shocked by the sight of a wedding venue, with overturned tables and chairs, broken items, and shattered beer bottles everywhere. The most shocking was the 5 people lying in the center of the wedding venue, with other guests cowering in various corners. According to the initial police investigation, 3 individuals were confirmed dead: the bride Kanchana, her mother, and her sister. The other 2 victims were wedding guests, initially talking with the bride, but when they saw Shattrong pointing the gun at her, they tried to intervene but failed. Both were unfortunately shot. One guest, a 50-year-old named Thong Nong Kuntad, did not survive after being shot, while the other guest, 28-year-old Bamrung Chatharat, was shot in the left side and severely injured. He was later rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. At the scene, the police collected a total of 13 9mm casings, all from the handgun that Shattrong had taken from his car. The police noted that Shattrong had once been a Marine at a naval base in Kanburi. Initially, he had a promising future, but during a mission, he lost his right leg to a train accident. This incident forced him into early retirement, ending his beloved naval career. Despite these significant life changes, Shattrong remained very determined and never gave up. He transitioned to working as a forest protector. During this job, he found another path in life. Thanks to his military service, Shattrong had good physical strength. He started a career in sports for the disabled, becoming a professional athlete through diligent training. He gradually showcased his talent in swimming and archery. By 2022, Shattrong represented Thailand at the 11th ASEAN Para Games, held in Indonesia. The competition lasted a week, where Shattrong competed in both swimming and archery, ultimately winning a silver medal in swimming and becoming an inspiration for relentless effort. In December 2023, in Lopburi Province, Thailand, there was another international sports event for the disabled. This was a week after Shattrong's wedding. He had planned to participate, and everyone hoped he would shine once again on the field. However, the incident at the wedding left all those plans unfulfilled. The bride, Kanchana, was 44 and a beautician. She had a cheerful, sociable personality and possessed a beauty that many envied. Kanchana had previously gone through a failed marriage with her first husband and had 2 children. Although she was 15 years older than Shattarang, the age difference was not an obstacle in their relationship. As a beauty expert, Kanchana paid great attention to skincare, making it hard to see any wrinkles on her face. This made it difficult for people to notice the age gap between her and Shattarang when they were together. Before marriage, Kanchana and Shattarang had lived together for 3 years. During this time, Kanchana still shared the responsibility of caring for her 2 children with her ex-husband. Thus, she often visited her ex-husband's house to see her children. However, this was a source of discontent for Shattarang, who felt insecure whenever Kanchana spoke with other men due to her beauty and gentleness. This led to numerous arguments between them. For Kanchana, she understood that Shattarang might be jealous due to his high possessiveness, so she didn't blame him too much. However, she didn't delve deeper into his emotions, thinking it was just a minor situation in daily life that wouldn't significantly affect their relationship. She believed her visits to her ex-husband's place were only to see her children, not to rekindle or be ambiguous about her past relationship. During their time living together, Kanchana always adhered to her responsibilities in the relationship. Having been married before, she knew how to maintain a good relationship. For those 3 years, Kanchana tried to understand and be tolerant with her boyfriend, striving to lay the foundation for a harmonious new family. But things were not as simple as she thought. After the wedding incident, the police sought additional information from some friends and relatives of the bride and groom. According to a close friend of Shattarang, despite achieving many accomplishments, he was not as confident as he appeared. He always felt inferior about the age difference with Kanchana, their life experiences, and his own shortcomings. He constantly felt he wasn't as good as any other healthy man, even when Kanchana showed tolerance and support. The more gentle Kanchana was, the more Shattarang feared losing her. He always thought that one day, Kanchana would leave him if she found a man with better conditions. Each time Kanchana visited her ex-husband to see her children, Shattarang thought it was just an excuse, and in reality, she was meeting her ex-husband. He always compared himself unfavorably with Kanchana's ex, and worried that in the future, she would abandon him to reunite with that man. Psychologists noted that Shattarang's insecurity and jealousy needed to be addressed through open conversation. These emotions stemmed from his self-worth perception. Psychologists also suggested that if Kanchana had recognized Shattarang's inner conflict earlier, she might have helped him deal with his negative emotions, building his self-confidence and trust in their marriage, thus avoiding the tragedy. A wedding guest reported that during the party, Shattarang and Kanchana had an argument. Although they tried to lower their voices to avoid disturbing other guests, the dispute couldn't stop easily. The guest sitting nearby overheard some words. According to this guest, Shattarang was very angry, his face flushed red, while Kanchana seemed quite calm. From their argument, the guest vaguely heard that Shattarang wanted Kanchana to contribute part of the wedding money to cover the wedding costs, which he saw as an investment in their relationship. However, Kanchana refused this proposal. Shattarang was shocked by this response, and immediately became very angry. He thought Kanchana's refusal was because she was sure to leave him in the future for another man. After that, he sat alone at the dining table drinking. This might have made Shattarang recall old issues, along with his long-standing insecurities and jealousy, making him increasingly lose control. However, because there were many guests at the wedding, Shattarang had to stop arguing with Kanchana. With his anger at its peak, with no outlet, he impulsively stood up, left the table, and fetched the gun from his car. According to investigators, the gun and ammunition Shattarang used in this case were legally purchased. Since he had military experience, he had developed an interest in shooting after his discharge. A 70-year-old neighbor near the scene said he heard loud noises late at night. Initially, they thought people were setting off fireworks to celebrate the wedding, only later realizing it was gunfire. Shattarang's decisive actions went beyond those of a normal person. Psychologists noted that Shattarang's behavior could indicate a mental health issue, leading to extreme actions. However, to confirm if he had a mental disorder requires scientific evaluation. After the incident, relatives held a funeral for the bride Kanchana, her mother and sister. Shattarang was taken back to his hometown temple in Phimai district. Another guest, who unfortunately passed away, was received by his family and taken to another temple in Phimai. Weddings are supposed to be one of the happiest occasions in life, but Shatterong, after drinking, could not control his emotions, leading to this tragedy. The departure of the victims left a significant sorrow for their friends and family. In Asia, Thailand ranks among the countries with the highest gun ownership and shooting incidents. Statistics show Thailand has 10.3 million guns, accounting for 15.1% of the population, meaning 15 guns per 100 people, the highest in ASEAN. On average, nearly 4 people per 100,000 die from gunshot wounds in Thailand, ranking second in ASEAN after the Philippines. On November 23, 2023, Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister Anyadin Shanvirakul signed an administrative order temporarily halting the issuance of gun licenses for 1 year to curb the ongoing gun violence in the country before this incident. Little did they know, just 2 days later, this bloody wedding would happen. Previously in October, a teenager had opened fire on shoppers in a mall in Bangkok, resulting in 8 casualties. This incident occurred on October 3, 2023. The police identified the 14-year-old suspect as a student from a private school with tuition fees up to $4,000 per semester, located just meters from the Siam Paragon Mall, where the shooting took place. After this event, Thai police tightened controls on illegal online gun and ammunition sales. Authorities also arrested several suspects believed to have sold the gun and ammunition to the 14-year-old in the mall's shooting. According to the investigation, the juvenile suspect was also undergoing treatment for mental illness, but had stopped taking medication for some time. On October 6th, the suspect's family issued an apology to the victims and the families of those killed or injured during the incident at Siam Paragon Mall, affirming they would take full responsibility and cooperate with the police investigation. This series of tragic events caused a significant stir in Thai public opinion at the time, raising major questions for authorities about the hidden dangers of legal gun ownership in the land of smiles. The temporary suspension of gun license issuance by Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister Anyadin Shanvirakul is an important effort, but it must be accompanied by psychological support and community education on emotion management. Only then can society hope to prevent similar tragedies and foster a safer living environment for everyone. Story 5. At 1 p.m. on March 13, 2025, mobile phones across British Columbia, BC, Canada suddenly blared with a loud alert. The system announced that a 2-year-old boy named Theodore Lim had been abducted from a family medical center on East Broadway in Vancouver. The suspect was Davis Lim, driving a blue 2006 Jetta. Many who saw the alert initially speculated that the abductor and the child might be father and son. Not only did they share the same last name, but statistics show that 9 out of 10 child abductions are committed by family members, often desperate parents who've lost custody and resort to such measures. Fortunately, in many cases, the child is eventually found safe. Some children even find the experience of hiding with a parent thrilling, like a real-life game of hide and seek. But this alert contained a line that sent chills through everyone. The abducted child has a severe congenital condition, unable to eat or breathe independently. Without the life-sustaining medical equipment from the hospital, his life is in danger with every passing minute. In the wanted photo provided by police, Davis was seen carrying the child while holding a black box, a portable ventilator, upon closer inspection. This wasn't a simple case of a father taking his child without notice. It was a true life-or-death escape. Why would this father take such a massive risk to abduct his son? Was it ignorance? Selfishness? Treating his son's life like a game? Or was there a deeper reason? According to police reports, Queen Elizabeth Park Medical Center discovered the child missing around 10:40 a.m. After reviewing surveillance footage from the hospital and parking lot, they immediately contacted the police. Authorities swiftly issued an Amber Alert for the child abduction and launched a province-wide manhunt. Their efficiency was nothing short of remarkable. Just as the public grew increasingly anxious for the critically ill boy, police announced at 5:42 p.m. on March 13, 2025, that they had located the Lim family. The boy was safely returned to the hospital for continued treatment. Davis Lim was arrested and now faces multiple felony charges, including abduction with intent to cause harm and child endangerment. Police footage showed the man being placed in a squad car. Their statement also revealed that inside Davis's vehicle were 2 older girls, identified as his daughters and the boy's sisters. It appeared Davis had planned not just to take his son from the hospital, but to flee with all 3 of his children. Imagine the challenge of a grown man managing 3 children aged 2 to 7, one of whom was so critically ill that he required a ventilator to survive. While the police didn't specify how they located the family, it's possible Davis, realizing the mission was impossible, surrendered for the sake of his children's safety. So why did this father act so recklessly despite the consequences? Was he truly so impulsive as to make such a grave mistake? Soon after, someone uncovered a series of articles from the Vancouver Sun revealing that Davis Lim had been at the center of a highly controversial lawsuit over 2 years earlier. He had sued the British Columbia Ministry of Children and Family Development, MCFD, to regain custody of his son. Unlike parents who lose custody due to suspected neglect or abuse, Davis and his wife were recognized as responsible and loving. They lost custody of their son solely due to disagreements with the hospital over his treatment plan. So what exactly happened? According to a Vancouver Sun reporter, Davis Lim is an ethnic Chinese man from Malaysia who immigrated to Canada with his parents as a child, settling in the coastal province of British Columbia. Davis studied economics at Simon Fraser University before joining the Canadian Army as a combat medic. After his military service, he met and quickly fell in love with a young white woman at church. Following their marriage, the couple moved to a farm over 400 kilometers northeast of Vancouver, learning to cultivate crops and operate tractors, embracing life as modern farmers. Over the next few years, they had 3 bright and beautiful daughters, enjoying a peaceful rural life. But as Tolstoy once said, all happy families are alike, while every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. The Lim family's misfortune began on April 14, 2022, with the birth of their 4th child, the central figure in this abduction case, Theodore, whom we'll call Theo. Davis shared with the reporter that Theo's birth was starkly different from his sister's. The delivery room was eerily silent. No cries were heard. Doctors and nurses rushed in and out, their faces grim. Davis stayed by his wife's side, still weak from labor, his heart burning with anxiety, but unsure of what was wrong. The next half hour felt like an eternity for the parents. When Davis finally heard Theo's faint cry, like a kitten's whimper, he felt a sliver of relief. But as he approached to hold his son, a doctor stopped him, explaining that the baby's condition was critical. The small hospital couldn't handle it, and they needed to arrange a medical helicopter to transfer Theo to BC Children's Hospital in Vancouver. With no room on the helicopter and his wife too frail to travel, Davis had to stay behind to care for her and their other children. It wasn't until 3 days later that he received a call from the hospital, informing him that Theo's condition had stabilized and family could visit. Overjoyed, Davis drove to Vancouver. During the 5-hour journey, he braced himself for every possible health issue his son might face. But seeing Theo in the hospital still left him horrified. The tiny baby was hooked up to various machines, with a breathing tube in his nose. Most alarming was a large syringe connected to an incision above Theo's stomach, filled with a liquid. Seeing his newborn son, just days old, endure such suffering brought Davis to tears. The doctor's diagnosis hit like a thunderbolt. Theo had a rare congenital condition called bacterial association, affecting major organs like his kidneys, spine, anus, and esophagus, with varying degrees of underdevelopment and malformation. His esophagus hadn't developed properly and didn't connect to his stomach, so doctors had to create an opening above his stomach to deliver nutrients hourly via syringe to sustain him. But even more critical than his inability to eat normally was Theo's heart condition. An echocardiogram revealed that both his aorta and pulmonary artery were abnormally connected to his right ventricle. Normally, the pulmonary artery connects to the right ventricle, but this anomaly placed an unbearable strain on Theo's tiny heart, risking heart failure at any moment. His lungs, deprived of sufficient blood flow, caused rapid breathing and cyanosis in his limbs, necessitating a ventilator to enhance blood and oxygen circulation. The machine couldn't be turned off for even a moment. Additionally, spinal deformities might mean Theo would never walk, potentially relying on a wheelchair for life. Such severe developmental defects could typically be detected during prenatal screenings. Either Davis and his wife never had these exams, or they discovered the issues but chose to keep the baby. While the Vancouver Sun didn't specify the reason, subsequent events suggest the latter possibility. We'll explore why in more detail later. Despite the severity of Theo's condition, neither the doctors at BC Children's Hospital nor his parents gave up on the fragile life. The hospital assembled top specialists to devise a treatment and surgical plan involving dozens of steps to be carried out from when Theo was 3 months old until he turned 12. If all went as hoped, Theo could not only survive but potentially live a near-normal life. Though Canada's healthcare system covered treatment and recovery costs, the long-term process demanded immense effort and personal expense from the parents, an immeasurable sacrifice. Davis and his wife didn't hesitate, believing every effort for their child was worthwhile. Even with the slimmest hope, they were determined to do their best. They devoted countless hours to Theo's meticulous care, even selling their beloved farm and moving to a small apartment in Surrey to be closer to the hospital. Davis took on odd jobs to support the family, spending every free moment at the hospital with Theo. Their dedication was undeniable. Had things continued this way, their story of perseverance and love might have led to a miraculous recovery for Theo, perhaps earning them a nomination for Canada's Most Inspiring Award. But life is unpredictable, and unexpected twists soon emerged. According to the Vancouver Sun, the honeymoon period between Davis and the hospital was short-lived. When Theo was less than a month old, serious disagreements over his treatment arose. The breaking point came when Theo contracted the coronavirus. With a near non-existent immune system, he had no defense against such a potent virus. After testing positive, Theo was admitted to the ICU, his life hanging by a thread. After 2 grueling weeks, enduring multiple episodes of respiratory arrest and cyanosis, Theo pulled through. However, his already underdeveloped lungs deteriorated further, making him permanently dependent on the ventilator. This near-death experience left Davis deeply critical of the hospital. He argued that since Theo had never left the hospital since birth, they should have known newborns have weak immunity, and taken proper sterilization and protective measures to prevent infection. The responsibility, he insisted, lay with the hospital. The hospital, however, blamed Davis, noting he was the only outsider with close contact to Theo. They argued he likely brought the virus in, pointing out that among the many infants in the neonatal care unit, only his son was infected. Their accusations intensified when they learned Davis was unvaccinated against COVID-19, condemning him for endangering his son and betraying the hospital's efforts to save him. The dispute escalated, though it was temporarily resolved through mediation. But the seeds of distrust had been sown in Davis's heart. Time passed quickly, and Theo reached 3 months old. Per the treatment plan and given the specific circumstances, Davis requested the hospital delay a scheduled surgery, as Theo had just recovered from the COVID-19. Performing a major thoracic surgery at that time posed a significant risk to the child's health and the parent's emotional state. However, after evaluation, the hospital determined Theo could undergo the procedure. The lead surgeon insisted the issue of blood supply to the heart was critical, and delaying the surgery would be detrimental. To secure consent, the hospital sent a psychologist to work with Davis's wife, ultimately convincing her to agree. The couple relented, and the surgery proceeded as planned, with both parents hoping it would resolve Theo's heart issues. While the surgery was technically successful, Theo faced a more severe crisis due to a post-operative infection. He suffered cardiac arrest, nearly dying, and to control the infection, doctors administered heavy antibiotics for 6 weeks, further straining his heart and lungs. Ultimately, they had to insert an endotracheal tube. Witnessing his son, who had previously been able to breathe independently and stay alert, fall into a coma and rely on machines after the surgery, Davis's anger became uncontainable. He believed the hospital's excessive treatment was to blame and demanded a more conservative approach. To clarify, despite the hospital's warning not to share anything on social media, under threat of further restricting his visitation rights, Davis posted about the ordeal on Facebook. Over a month after the surgery, as a nurse prepared to administer antibiotics through Theo's 4, the boy had just calmed down after a bout of crying, finally soothed to sleep by his parents. Per protocol, the nurse needed to flush the 4 catheter before the injection, an action likely to wake Theo. Davis, standing nearby, asked if the injection could be delayed a few hours to let his son rest. What happened next depends on who you ask. The nurse's report claimed Davis became agitated, even trying to snatch the vial from her. Davis later told a reporter the nurse was the one who got angry, calling security to escort him and his wife out of the room. During their argument, Theo woke up, crying intensely, which led to breathing difficulties and an irregular heartbeat, forcing doctors to call a code. As a result, the hospital issued a warning to the family, prohibiting them from interfering with Theo's treatment. They threatened to report the incident to the BC Ministry of Children and Family Development if such behavior continued. The hospital's stance left Davis both stunned and furious. He hired a lawyer to formally complain to the Ministry of Health, which launched an investigation. For the first time, Davis gained full access to Theo's medical records. He discovered that doctors had been administering lorazepam to Theo to calm him for tests and treatments. Lorazepam is effective for anxiety, but can be addictive and cause respiratory issues. Due to Theo's COVID-19 infection, doctors had to stop the drug, and 3 days later, Theo suffered 12 seizures. At the time, doctors told Davis the seizures were due to meningitis caused by the virus, prescribing treatment for over 2 months without mentioning potential withdrawal side effects. Davis believed the doctor's fragmented approach, treating symptoms in isolation, turned his son into a guinea pig for experimentation. As mentioned earlier, Davis had served as a combat medic in the Canadian Army. While not a specialized doctor, he wasn't medically ignorant. After reviewing Theo's records, he researched thoroughly and consulted former military doctor colleagues. He found Theo lacked meningitis symptoms like fever or rash, leading him to demand the hospital stop all medications, including post-thoracic surgery antibiotics, until a confirmed positive test result. He even sent a liability waiver through his lawyer, stating doctors wouldn't be held responsible for complications during this period. But the hospital viewed this as a blatant provocation and a severe threat to Theo's life, formally reporting the matter to the MCFD. At this point, the relationship between the two parties completely broke down. Since Theo had worn an oxygen mask since birth, the straps had compressed his soft skull, causing severe cranial deformation. His pointed head resembled an alien from a sci-fi movie, altering his facial structure. Davis and his wife were deeply concerned, fearing that even if Theo recovered, he'd face lifelong stigma. They requested the mask be removed to allow his head to reshape while still malleable, but the hospital denied this request. Davis recalled the doctor arrogantly saying, "That mask is keeping your son alive. Without life, what's the point of looking good?" To prove Theo could breathe without it, Davis conducted an unauthorized experiment in February 2023. After bathing Theo, he didn't immediately reattach the oxygen mask, letting him breathe on his own for over 30 minutes under a nurse's supervision, recording the process as proof. In Davis's view, Theo was perfectly fine during those 30 minutes. But when Theo's doctor reviewed the video, they claimed the child showed signs of respiratory distress. They likened Davis's actions to pulling a fish out of water, a cruel act of endangerment, and warned him against further unauthorized experiments. Just 2 weeks later, a nurse reported that after bathing Theo, Davis hesitated for several minutes before reattaching the oxygen mask. This momentary delay led the BCMCFD to conclude the parents were endangering their child's life, stripping Davis of custody. He was restricted to supervised visits twice a week. Despite Davis's strong objections and legal appeals, he was fighting a losing battle. Threatened with the potential loss of custody over his other children, he signed a temporary custody agreement in April 2024, transferring guardianship of Theo to the hospital and MCFD. But less than 2 weeks later, Davis learned Theo was scheduled for another surgery, during which a permanent tracheostomy would be performed to prevent future infections from repeated intubations. Davis and his wife immediately objected, arguing that the surgery would permanently eliminate Theo's chance to wean off the ventilator, severely impacting his quality of life. They filed an emergency injunction through their lawyer to halt the procedure. The hospital, however, insisted the surgery was essential to save Theo's life and enable further treatments. Thus began a legal battle between the parents, the government, and the hospital over custody of the child. Though the case didn't go to a formal trial, the heated arguments during hearings were as intense as any courtroom showdown. The hospital argued that despite Theo's severe congenital defects, they could be corrected through surgery and persistent rehabilitation. He could live nearly as long as a typical person, attending school, marrying, and having children. But if the parents' conservative approach, no surgery, no ventilator, no drugs, was followed, Theo would suffer chronic respiratory distress and oxygen deprivation, his heart unable to bear the strain as he grew, likely dying before adulthood. Canadian law prioritizes children's health above all. If parents refuse necessary medical care or obstruct hospital treatment plans, child protection agencies can revoke custody. They cited a 2013 case in Calgary, Alberta, where a mother, believing in natural remedies, refused to take her critically ill 7-year-old son to a doctor, treating him with honey syrup and herbs at home. The boy died, and the mother was sentenced to 3 years in prison for child neglect. With such a precedent, the hospital had grounds to act preemptively to save Theo's life. However, Davis's lawyer countered that both parents were well educated, with Davis possessing some medical knowledge. They had initially cooperated fully with the hospital's treatments, sacrificing immensely. Their change in attitude stemmed from repeated treatments that not only failed to deliver expected results, but caused Theo's significant physical suffering, leading them to question the doctor's protocols. When the parents raised such concerns, the hospital responded with arrogance, dismissing their requests without explaining the necessity of the upcoming surgery. This breakdown in communication was the root cause of the current situation. The lawyer urged the hospital and MCFD to restore custody to Davis and his wife, allowing future medical decisions to be made through thorough mutual understanding, all in the best interest of the child's health. In reality, after the first hearing, the judge leaned somewhat toward Davis and his wife, recognizing that their opposition to the hospital stemmed from love and an inability to watch their child suffer. Since both sides had good intentions, the judge relaxed their visitation restrictions and ordered the hospital to reassess the upcoming surgery for Theo. But just as things seemed to be turning in Davis's favor, an unexpected twist unfolded. In July 2023, shortly before the second hearing, another heated dispute erupted between Davis and the hospital. Since birth, Theo had been unable to eat like other children, so the hospital used a drip to deliver nutrients directly into his stomach. But as Theo grew, feeding took up to 3 hours daily, not only prolonging the process, but also causing digestive side effects like bloating. The doctors proposed surgery to create an esophagus and intestinal cavity until Theo was old enough for esophageal reconstruction. Davis immediately opposed this decision. He argued that his son already had a tracheostomy hole in his throat. Adding another to his esophagus would mean more tubes in his tiny body. How could a child so reliant on machines ever live a normal life? At such a young age, Theo risked permanently losing the ability to swallow. Even if esophageal reconstruction succeeded later, it would be merely decorative. Learning from past clashes with the hospital, Davis vented his frustration on his personal Facebook page, stating he was considering turning off Theo's feeding machine during his visit on July 10th. For an infant entirely dependent on the machine for nutrition, such an act would be tantamount to slowly taking the child's life. Consequently, someone reported the publicly accessible post to the Ministry of Children and Family Development, MCFD. This time they reacted swiftly. For the child's safety, they immediately suspended Davis and his wife's visitation rights. Moreover, MCFD investigators discovered that Davis and his wife were members of a conservative religious sect. They adhered to a back-to-roots lifestyle, emulating Jesus' life from thousands of years ago, rejecting high-tech chemical products and food, daily life, and medicine, including vaccines and antibiotics. This explained why, as mentioned earlier, even after discovering Theo's severe congenital defects during prenatal screenings, they chose to keep the baby. In their devout faith, abortion was a grave sin. Additionally, despite Theo's condition, Davis and his wife conceived again, giving birth to another daughter a year later. Including Theo, they had 5 children. As Davis wrote on Facebook, whether healthy or not, children were God's gift, and they couldn't reject their existence. According to the Vancouver Sun, Davis had been an atheist and a believer in modern medicine during his time as a combat medic. It was only after leaving the military and joining this sect that his views shifted. Later, with Theo's illness requiring the family to sell their farm and move to Surrey, Davis turned to prayer, hoping for his son's recovery, and actively evangelized in the community. But from the MCFD's perspective, Davis's approach was akin to waiting for Theo to die slowly. Thus, at the second hearing in late July 2024, Davis and his wife were permanently stripped of custody of Theo. This meant that even if Theo's health improved and he was discharged in the future, he would be placed with a foster family. Davis expressed outrage over the decision to a reporter, saying, he felt his family had become a sacrificial pawn in Canada's welfare and child protection system. On the surface, they fought for the child, but in reality, they trampled on the most fundamental parental rights. Reports indicate Davis hadn't given up on regaining custody of his son. He contacted a lawyer and was actively appealing. But given this abduction incident, his chances of a successful appeal seemed slim. "I just want to see fairness and justice," Davis told a reporter in his final 2023 interview. Spring has come again, and Vancouver's cherry blossoms bloom year after year. On a street not far from the Children's Hospital, falling petals bear witness to each life's choices. Medicine can heal physical defects, but mending broken trust requires a compassion far more delicate than surgery. Story 6. A marriage scam in Japan involving a staggering 4 billion yen has set social media ablaze. A prominent investment mogul has sued his former lover, Nakamoto Himika, dubbed Japan's most beautiful hostess, accusing her of exploiting their relationship under the guise of marriage to extort gifts worth 4 billion yen, roughly $27 million, while damaging his social reputation. He relentlessly exposed her alleged scandals from fraud and tax evasion to other notorious behaviors. However, the mogul's true face as the mastermind of a Ponzi scheme has also come to light. What initially seemed like a tale of a lovesick man deceived by a bar hostess turned out to be far more complex. Neither party is as innocent as they appear. Now let's dive into the details of this case involving the woman known as Japan's most beautiful hostess, Osaka's Little Devil, and the top hostess of the Reiwa era, Nakamoto Himika. We'll also take a closer look at Japan's hostess industry and the secrets lurking behind this profession. Hostesses in Japan undertake a unique role, primarily working in upscale nightclubs or bars. Their main duties involve engaging with clients, conversing, drinking together, and creating a relaxed, enjoyable atmosphere. The job demands not only an appealing appearance and demeanor, but also exceptional communication skills and emotional intelligence to meet clients' social needs. It's a role that requires significant emotional labor and advanced social finesse. In Japanese society, the hostess profession elicits mixed opinions. Supporters argue it's a legitimate form of entertainment, while critics contend that the industry's hyper-commercialization can negatively impact women's image. Nevertheless, some hostesses rise to the top through hard work and charisma, becoming industry stars, building personal brands, and even branching into fields like fashion or business. These success stories have somewhat shifted societal perceptions, showing that with dedication, the profession can be a pathway to achievement. Now let's turn to Nakamoto Himika, a standout figure in this wave. She entered the hostess world with the aura of a wealthy heiress. Within just 3 months, she became the top earner at her club, even setting a record by generating over 100 million yen, about $675,000 in just 12 hours, repeatedly breaking industry benchmarks. On Instagram, Himika boasts over 800,000 followers, and on TikTok, 550,000. Beyond hostessing, she's a social media influencer, inspiring many young women who see her as a symbol of success. Himika, born Nakamoto. Himika, on October 27, 2000, hails from a wealthy family in Hyogo Prefecture, Japan. Her father, Nakamoto Shisaku, is a businessman and CEO of Dean PLO, a company specializing in imported luxury cars like Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. He also sponsors Porsche-related sports events, such as the Porsche Cup and Porsche Championship, and oversees multiple companies with extensive business operations. Raised in such a family, Himika enjoyed a life of material abundance from a young age. She traveled in luxury cars and attended prestigious private aristocratic schools in the region, with a guaranteed academic path that didn't require entrance exams. In affluent families like hers, sending children to study abroad is common. However, Himika chose not to follow the path her parents had laid out, realizing she wasn't academically gifted and craving a different life. She decided to forge her own future. During high school, Himika joined the entertainment agency Avex and competed in the 2015 Tokyo Girls Collection, reaching the semifinals. Despite her strong showing, the final results fell short of expectations, and opposition from her school forced her to withdraw. She then started working part-time at a barbecue restaurant, where her striking appearance drew crowds, some traveling long distances just to see her. This experience made Himika realize she possessed a unique charm and talent. After graduating high school, she enrolled at Mukagawa Women's Junior College. During this time, she worked at the barbecue restaurant for about 3 years, gradually growing bored with the routine part-time job and yearning for new challenges. By chance, she learned about Club Reims, an upscale nightclub in Osaka's Kitashinchi district, owned by Ace Group. The club's operator, Noah, was a young female president who had been a renowned hostess herself before retiring at 23 to take the helm. Noah had achieved remarkable business success, with annual revenues reaching 10 billion yen, around 67 million US dollars. Himika began working part-time at Club Reims in 2018. She didn't tell her parents about her foray into the nightlife entertainment industry, instead lying that she was working at a karaoke bar. But since she still lived at home, the truth soon came out. Himika's mother was furious, insisting the family wasn't short on money and could support her financially if needed, demanding she quit immediately. Her father issued a stern warning as well. Her mother even declared that if Himika wanted to continue in the industry, she'd have to move out and live independently within a month. At 18, Himika found the nightlife entertainment world alluring, not just for the money, but for values far beyond material wealth. At Club Reims, she was exposed to an entirely new world, regularly meeting successful entrepreneurs and high-profile individuals she'd never encounter in a typical university life. Everything about the nightclub sparked her curiosity and excitement. So Himika moved out, and in her second year of college, she deferred her studies to dedicate herself fully to the industry. In an interview, Himika once shared that when she started, she didn't set specific goals like becoming a famous hostess, standing out, or earning a fortune. Instead, her main drive was curiosity about society and a desire to experience different facets of life, approaching the industry with a mindset of learning. But the deeper she delved into the industry, the more her interest and ambition grew. Within 3 months of starting, she quickly became the club's standout performer. Notably, Himika entered the industry at 18, not yet of legal drinking age in Japan, so she couldn't drink alcohol. However, she realized this was actually a significant advantage. Many clients visit nightclubs not just to drink, but to enjoy a relaxing atmosphere. Such clients were often impressed by, and more supportive of, the efforts of new staff like her, offering encouragement that fueled her rise. Himika's reputation spread rapidly within the industry. To boost her visibility and attract high-end clients to the club, she actively built her presence on platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, sharing glimpses of her daily life and fashion sense, quickly amassing a large following. Himika also became an exclusive model for Little Devil Aya magazine, earning the nickname Osaka's Little Devil. The magazine's primary readership, girls aged 13 to 20, frequently voted her as their favorite cover model, making her an idol to many young women. The magazine even hosted a fan meet-and-greet event just for her. Since 2021, Himika has consistently appeared on the runway at the Kansai Fashion Show, the largest fashion event in the Kansai region, and served as an ambassador for several renowned fashion brands. With a beauty and physique rivaling top supermodels, her fame soared. Her celebrity status also landed her appearances on television programs, solidifying her place in the entertainment world. Himika's extraordinary appeal brought incredible revenue to the nightclub, attracting not just men but also women eager to meet her. Among her fans were even many underage schoolgirls. After seeing her glamorous image in magazines and on TV, these young girls began dreaming of becoming hostesses themselves. This trend raised concerns that such a lavish lifestyle might negatively influence young girls' values. To counter this, Himika often showcased a relatable, down-to-earth side on social media. She emphasized that her nightclub work and real life were two separate worlds. Himika enjoyed shopping, traveling with high school friends, wearing affordable clothes, and living a simple life, helping her maintain a grounded perspective on money. Himika stated that all the luxury items she owned were bought with her hard-earned money as a reward for her relentless efforts. This approach not only highlighted her diligence but also earned her fans admiration and recognition, garnering widespread praise. In April 2022, Himika moved from Club Reims to Club Reims, immediately making a splash. On her first day, she generated a personal revenue of 53 million yen, about 360,000 US dollars. After the switch, she continued to achieve remarkable results, with her 2022 and 2023 revenues both surpassing 1 billion yen, roughly $6.7 million each year. These feats left fans in awe, dubbing her unbeatable Himika and adding a new chapter to Club Reims' legacy. Having reached an unparalleled peak as a top-tier hostess, Himika decided to embark on a new phase of her life. On October 2, 2023, she announced her retirement on social media, sharing that she had poured her heart and passion into the job. However, She felt she no longer had new goals to chase in the industry and chose to retire to explore a different version of herself. From October 26th to 28th that year, Himika held her final birthday event before retiring. In just 3 days, she achieved a record-breaking revenue of 500 million yen, around $3.4 million, closing her illustrious career as the Queen of Hostesses. Following the event, Himika took a 3-month hiatus, traveling the world and indulging in her love for poker tournaments. Even during her break, she stayed connected with fans, posting videos and photos. Given her established reputation in modeling, many predicted she'd pivot to fashion or entertainment post-retirement. However, Himika had once stated that the nightclub was where she truly belonged. Upon retiring, she expressed gratitude to Ace Group for helping her grow and achieve proud milestones in her career. She affirmed her intention to remain tied to Ace Group in a new capacity. Ace Group, led by Chairman Ayada Takashi and nightclub representative Kusumoto, had long recognized Himika's influence in the high-end hostess industry. They repeatedly persuaded her to take on the role of president of Club Rays, hoping to leverage her public appeal and experience to breathe new life into the establishment. Though she lacked management experience, Himika's decisive personality and willingness to embrace challenges led her to accept the position with enthusiasm, determined to continue shining in the industry. On February 11, 2024, at 11:29 a.m., Himika appeared with a fresh short haircut and an elegant black suit. She emphasized that this wasn't an impulsive decision, but the result of careful consideration. The role of a manager is different from that of a performer, and I thought deeply before making this choice. But once I decided, I'll give it my all. I hope everyone will continue to support me, she said. Her speech exuded confidence and the professional demeanor of a formidable businesswoman. Thus, Himika became the second person, after the Noah, to assume the presidency at age 23, marking a new chapter in her career. From a top hostess, she stepped onto an entirely new stage as a female president. Though she moved behind the scenes, Himika retained her allure, with many loyal clients visiting the club almost daily to support her. However, just as her new career began to stabilize, a storm of scandal erupted. About 6 months after taking office, her ex-boyfriend and primary sponsor, Kikuchi Sho, posted a serious accusation on social media, claiming Himika had deceived him with a fake promise of marriage. This sparked a fierce wave of debate. Kikuchi further alleged that Himika's entire persona was fabricated. Kikuchi claimed Himika wasn't the wealthy heiress she portrayed herself as, but an ordinary materialistic woman. Despite Himika's assertions that she'd never had plastic surgery, Kikuchi revealed that her appearance and figure had been surgically enhanced, including a breast augmentation he funded for 2.7 million yen, about $18,000. He also accused her of engaging in overnight escort services and reported her to Japan's tax authorities for allegedly failing to declare taxes on billions of yen in income. Kikuchi demanded a thorough investigation into her tax evasion. This barrage of accusations thrust Himika into the eye of a public storm, facing relentless criticism. In September 2024, Himika was invited as a guest on the talk show Explosive Information Summit, hosted by MC Koji Yamada. When asked about her highest single-day earnings, Himika replied calmly, around 2 to 3 billion yen. This statement immediately ignited a firestorm of controversy. Before the episode aired, viewers sent letters of protest to the network, arguing that Himika's controversial image could negatively influence young people, and urging the show not to feature her on public broadcasts. The network responded that Kikuchi's allegations against Himika were, at that point, unproven suspicions. Thus, the episode aired as planned on September 21st. Beyond being Himika's ex-boyfriend, Kikuchi Sho, a major nightclub patron, was no ordinary figure. Before delving into his accusations, let's explore who Kikuchi Sho really is. Kikuchi Sho was born in 1977 in Hokkaido and is currently 47 years old. He doesn't have an advanced educational background, having only graduated from a specialized school in Tokyo, before returning to his hometown to build his career. Kikuchi self-taught forex trading for 6.5 years, achieving a remarkable record in 2009, with a profit rate of over 2,500% in just 15 days, earning him the title of a trading genius. In 2011, he began working as a forex trader for a private fund in Japan. By 2013, he established a company in the UK, and the following year, he joined a foreign securities firm as a forex trader. In 2015, he founded XIA, followed by XIA Private Limited in 2019. Kikuchi held significant roles such as CEO and CTO at various international companies, achieving considerable success in the investment sector. His annual income is estimated to range between 1 and 4 billion yen, approximately 6.7 to 27 million US dollars. Yet, Kikuchi Sho is a deeply controversial figure. Known as a flamboyant playboy, he has a particular fondness for hostesses. Besides Himika, he has dated other prominent hostesses like Ichijo Hibiki and Natsume Kokoro. His current girlfriend Erika is also a well-known hostess. Kikuchi is renowned for his lavish spending, often sharing images on social media of luxury cars, high-end brands, and an opulent lifestyle. However, he's also entangled in multiple lawsuits, which we'll explore later. In late August 2024, Kikuchi posted a series of lengthy Instagram posts that sent shockwaves through the public. In a post exceeding 2,000 words, he publicly accused Himika of deceiving him emotionally and committing marriage fraud. Kikuchi revealed that their relationship began on March 20, 2021, with plans to marry. In October 2021, Himika suddenly expressed her intent to retire. To show support, Kikuchi prepared 1,000 bottles of premium champagne worth over 100 million yen, about 675,000 US dollars, as a gift. But just days before her birthday event, Himika returned the champagne, saying she couldn't retire at that time. Kikuchi expressed understanding and respected her decision. However, he began questioning whether to continue the relationship. At this point, Himika promised she would definitely retire before her 2022 birthday event. This assurance kept their relationship alive for a while longer. In his post, Kikuchi pointed out that from November 2021, the quantity, value, and frequency of champagne at Himika's birthday events, along with a significant increase in money and gifts, were all funded by him. Himika had claimed on her personal channels that she earned her money and bought luxury items through her own efforts. But Kikuchi revealed that over 90% of these were gifts from him. Himika further used the promise of, "We'll marry after I retire," to gain Kikuchi's unwavering trust, prompting him to spend lavishly at the nightclub, buying expensive champagne to help her maintain her top spot in the industry. Kikuchi also claimed that Himika's appearances at the Kansai fashion show and her nationwide fame in Japan were due to his financial support and arrangements. However, Himika grew arrogant, believing, "All the recognition I get from the world is due to my exceptional talent." This made Kikuchi worry whether she would keep her promise. In mid-April 2022, just before Club Ray's opening, Kikuchi met privately with Ace Group chairman Ayada Takashi, asking him to convince Himika to retire. Ayada reportedly agreed to help, giving Kikuchi some reassurance. To ensure Himika's retirement event was grand, Kikuchi personally attended her farewell at Club Reims, contributing over 100 million yen in revenue over 3 days. To ease Himika's concerns about life after retirement, Kikuchi provided additional support. He gifted her expensive items like watches, clothes, and handbags, organized extravagant trips, and transferred 20 million yen, about 135,000 US dollars, into her personal account for living expenses, ensuring she faced no financial hardship. Kikuchi even spent generously on Himika's friends and family. But in early September 2022, Himika told him she couldn't retire because her father objected. Kikuchi revealed that by then, he had spent nearly 4 billion yen, around 27 million US dollars, on Himika, including money, gifts, and the sacrifice of his reputation. Just 2 months later, Ace Group banned him from entering any of their nightclubs. On January 14, 2023, Himika sent Kikuchi a message before immediately blocking him. It was then that Kikuchi realized her promises were a scam. He posted a lengthy expose, followed by continuous Instagram stories, sharing evidence like photos, videos, and conversations from their time together, sparking a massive online debate. In his post, Kikuchi emphasized that his goal wasn't to reclaim money or assets. He hadn't demanded any repayment. He claimed his story aimed to serve Japan's public interest, protecting youth from negative influences, promoting tax compliance, preventing tax evasion, and combating emotional fraud and illegal gambling. Rumors suggest Kikuchi's decision to go public stemmed from a chance encounter with Himika's father, Nakamoto Shisaku, at a sushi restaurant, where he felt disrespected, prompting a vengeful response. However, Himika and Kikuchi's relationship had ended over a year and a half earlier, leading some to question whether Kikuchi was exploiting the situation to drag her down or, unable to get what he wanted, sought to destroy her. Critics called his behavior childish and ungentlemanly, accusing him of using money to build the relationship and then demanding compensation after the breakup, branding him the worst ex in history. After the fallout, on January 16, 2023, Himika issued a public apology and paused her nightclub work for nearly a month. She admitted to their past relationship, writing, "I never expected that loving someone would bring so much criticism and judgment. It made me realize I might have loved the wrong person." Himika shared that Kikuchi's company, suspected of fraud, brought her immense pressure and criticism during their relationship, severely impacting the nightclub's reputation. She and her family also faced threats from Yakuza groups, forcing her to end the relationship. Soon after, she set her Instagram to private. Recently, Kikuchi intensified his accusations, claiming Himika secretly mocked him to regain lost clients. He further alleged that during their relationship, Himika cheated with multiple men, including actor Yamamoto Yusuke, known for Hanazakari no Kimitachi and Yamada Ryosuke, a member of the idol group Hey! Say! Jump! Kikuchi also claimed Himika was jealous of his ex, Ichijo Hibiki, constantly demanding more expensive gifts than those he'd given Ichijo to prove his affection. Kikuchi called the Nakamoto family opportunists, alleging Himika's father squandered her earnings on lavish escapades. Her mother encouraged her to buy luxury items as gifts, and her brother was a school bully who posted videos of his actions online, sparking public outrage. Kikuchi claimed he paid to resolve that issue. The ongoing saga between Himika and Kikuchi continues to captivate and divide the public, with new revelations fueling the controversy. While some netizens sympathize with Kikuchi, most focus on a pressing question. Where did his vast spending money come from? As mentioned earlier, Kikuchi faces multiple lawsuits and admitted to sacrificing his social reputation for Himika. So what's the real story? In 2022, a key figure accused XCA, Kikuchi's company, of operating a Ponzi scheme with no actual investment activities. The accuser was Ito Daisuke, former vice president of Ashiya Japan, Ashiya's predecessor, co-founded by Kikuchi and Ito in April 2015. A Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent investment model that pays returns to earlier investors using funds from newer ones, often promising high profits with low risk, despite no real investment or business activity. Starting May 26, 2022, Ito Daisuke used social media to publicly expose Ashiya's issues. In the January 26, 2023, paid edition of Weekly Shinsho's Money column, he further detailed Kikuchi's shady dealings and Ashiya's inner workings. Local accounting records showed Ashiya had no income in 2017 and 2018 and failed to submit financial documents thereafter. Kikuchi pretended the company used Ashiya loans to generate large forex trading profits, but no investments existed. Using new investors' money to fake dividends for earlier ones clearly marked it as a Ponzi scheme. Despite this, Kikuchi spent extravagantly, splashing billions of yen at hostess clubs in Shinjuku Kabukicho and later in Osaka's Kitashinchi. Ashiya once rented an entire floor in a Roppongi Tokyo high-rise for 50 million yen monthly, about $335,000, and spent 5 billion yen, roughly $33.5 million, to lavishly decorate the office to attract investors. As the company's face, Kikuchi was notorious for his lavish lifestyle, spending tens of millions of yen in a single night at clubs and buying a luxury condo for 300 million yen, around $2 million in cash. Ashiya raised 72.3 billion yen, approximately $485 million, from about 12,000 investors. But by spring 2021, the company couldn't fulfill withdrawal requests, leading to numerous lawsuits for damages and share repurchasing. Following a wave of lawsuits in November 2022, Ashiya vacated its Roppongi office, relocating to a rundown building in Kinshicho, Sumida Ward, Tokyo. That same month, Ashiya's cryptocurrency subsidiary ceased operations due to financial shortages, as ordered by Japan's Financial Services Agency. Kikuchi's platinum credit card was cancelled, and some of his assets were frozen. Soon after, he resigned as Ashiya's chairman, with lawsuits against him ongoing. Regarding Kikuchi's tax evasion allegations against Himika, renowned tax expert Sugawara Yuichi shared his analysis on his YouTube channel. Kikuchi claimed Himika received gifts worth 2.5 billion yen, about 16.8 million US dollars, including luxury bags, jewelry, and an unlimited credit card. If true, under Japan's 55% gift tax rate, plus penalties for non-declaration, Himika could owe up to 1.82 billion yen, roughly 12.2 million US dollars. Even if Himika declared bankruptcy, she couldn't escape the gift tax obligation, risking asset seizure. If the marriage fraud accusation is proven and she's convicted, alongside the massive tax bill, she could face up to 10 years in prison. With both figures entangled in legal battles, the case has been dubbed a showdown between two scammers. The public awaits whether Kikuchi Sho, the investment genius, or Himika, the former top hostess, will face justice first. Story 7. Crystal Rogers, a 35-year-old mother from Bardstown, Kentucky, was known for her dedication to her children. She lived 45 miles southeast of Louisville and shared custody of her 4 children with her ex-husband, Keith. Despite their separation, Crystal and Keith maintained an amicable relationship for the sake of their children. Her youngest son, who was only 2 years old at the time, was with her current boyfriend, Brooks Houck. Because Crystal had always been a reliable and responsible parent, her mother, Sherry Ballard, found it strange when she failed to answer her phone on July 5, 2015. Crystal usually responded to Sherry's calls, but the lack of communication was causing Sherry growing concern. It had been 24 hours since Sherry last heard from her daughter, and with each passing hour, her worry intensified. Crystal's absence was out of character, and Sherry's maternal instincts were telling her something was amiss. Sherry couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Sherry tried contacting Crystal multiple times throughout the day, but her efforts went unanswered each time. She decided to reach out to Crystal's friends and family, hoping someone would know where Crystal might be. Unfortunately, no one had seen or spoken with her recently. Around the same time, Brooke, Crystal's younger sister, contacted Sherry to inform her that she, too, had been unable to reach Crystal. Brooke shared with her mother that she had spoken with Brooks Houck, Crystal's boyfriend. Brooks informed her that he had not seen Crystal since Friday. According to Brooks, the last time he saw her, she was up playing games on her phone before he went to bed. When Brooks woke up the next morning, Crystal was gone. He speculated that Crystal may have gone to visit her cousin's house to celebrate the 4th of July. However, Sherry's concern grew as she struggled to get in touch with her daughter. Sherry reported Crystal missing to the police department, and as she was there, her son, Casey, received a phone call from a friend who had seen Crystal's car on the side of the road. This discovery worried Casey and his father, Tommy Ballard, as they knew Crystal would not have abandoned the vehicle of her own accord. Upon receiving the call, Casey and Tommy felt a sense of dread in their stomachs. Upon arrival at the location, Casey and Tommy saw Crystal's car, which had a flat tire. However, this discovery only reinforced their belief that something was seriously wrong. If Crystal had encountered car trouble, she would have certainly reached out to one of them for assistance. The idea that she would have pulled over and tried to fix it on her own was unfathomable. As they examined the car further, Casey and Tommy noticed Crystal's keys, phone and purse on the passenger seat. These items served as additional evidence that something was amiss. Crystal would not have gone anywhere without her belongings, and their presence in the car further heightened their fears for her well-being. After Crystal's father and brother found her vehicle on the Bluegrass Parkway, they promptly notified the Nelson County Sheriff's Department. Investigators arrived at the scene and examined Crystal's car. Despite finding no signs of a struggle, something stood out to them. The driver's seat seemed out of place for someone of Crystal's height. This peculiar observation raised suspicions that someone else may have been driving her car. As the authorities continued their investigation, they sought assistance from any witnesses who may have noticed something on the parkway. However, no one came forward with any valuable information. The police decided to turn to the media in the hope of generating leads from the public. They released Crystal's photo and appealed to the public for assistance in finding her. Unfortunately, no one came forward with any significant leads. Tommy, Crystal's father, organized search parties to locate her. Unfortunately, the hot and humid weather made the searches difficult. Many individuals showed up to help look for Crystal, but one notable absence was her boyfriend, Brooks Houck. The police became suspicious of Brooks' apparent lack of concern regarding Crystal's disappearance, since she was not only the mother of his child. When detectives questioned Brooks, he claimed that Crystal and their son had accompanied him to his family's farm the previous evening. According to Brooks, they returned home around midnight, after which he went to bed. He stated that Crystal remained awake, engrossed in her phone as she often did, playing games. Brooks claimed that when he woke up at 7 a.m., his son was already in bed with him, but Crystal was nowhere to be found. Initially, he speculated that Crystal may have gone out with her cousin. However, those who know Crystal well contradicted this claim, as she never would have left her son behind. Crystal and her 2-year-old were attached at the hip. Brooke, Crystal's sister, believed Crystal was planning to leave Brooks. According to Brooke, Brooks had lied to Crystal and failed to show an emotional attachment to her. Crystal had confided in her mother, Sherry, that she wanted to leave Brooks, but admitted that it would not be easy because he was controlling. Casey, Crystal's brother, had also recently noticed tension between Brooks and Crystal and witnessed several heated arguments. The police asked Brooks to come to the police station to take a polygraph test, which came back inconclusive. Afterward, Brooks sat with the police for a formal interview. Detectives had collected footage that confirmed details of Brooks' story. A video showed his truck going into his family's farm, and the footage revealed the car leaving the property around midnight. However, because Brooks' truck had tinted windows, the police couldn't see who was inside the vehicle at the time. According to Brooks, while at his parents' farm, he did chores, set a fire for building materials, and waited for the fire to die before driving home. During the interview, the police inquired about a short phone call that Brooks had on his way back from his parents' farm with a business associate, Steve Lawson, that lasted for only 13 seconds. In order to clarify matters, Brooks decided to have Steve Lawson explain the conversation to the police during the interview and call him. Steve Lawson said he had called Brooks to acquire the numbers for a rental property. However, the police found this claim suspicious, as it seemed like a scripted response. Steve Lawson explained Brooks told him that he needed to wait until he got home because Crystal was the one who handled that type of stuff. The police expressed confusion, wondering why Brooks, who was in Crystal's company at the time of the call, had to wait to talk to her in person. They questioned why Brooks could not have handed her the phone and had the conversation right then and there. In the midst of Brooks' interview, he received a phone call from his brother, Nick, an officer at the Bardstown Police Department. Nick advised Brooks to exit the interrogation room immediately. The police were not convinced that Crystal had run away and abandoned her car on the side of the Bluegrass Parkway. It seemed to the police that something had happened to Crystal while she was at the Brooks Hawk family farm. As the investigation into Crystal's disappearance continued, people called the police and reported seeing Brooks' truck and his brother Nick's police car at the Hawk family farm. Detectives became convinced that the brothers were at the farm disposing of evidence in Crystal's disappearance. To gather more information, the police decided to call in Nick, Brooks' brother, for questioning. They confronted him with the fact that he had been spotted at his family's farm on July 8th and asked him to explain why he had been there. However, Nick denied having any knowledge of what they were talking about and claimed not to have been out there that night. Despite Nick's denial, the police pressed on and asked him to point blank if he and his brother had destroyed or hidden evidence involving Crystal's disappearance. Nick adamantly denied that they had engaged in wrongdoing and insisted that his brother could not harm someone. Furthermore, he said there was no conceivable scenario where he, as a police officer, would have assisted Brooks in covering up a crime. After the interview, the police asked Nick if he would be willing to take a polygraph test, and he agreed. Nick failed the polygraph on 2 questions. The first question was, "Do you know where the crystal is right now?" The second question was, "Are you hiding any information about what happened to the crystal?" Despite failing the polygraph, Nick maintained that he was being 100% honest. On October 15th, the police investigating Crystal's disappearance named her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, as the prime suspect. On the same day, Brooks' brother Nick was fired from Joss as an officer at the Bardstown Police Department for impeding their investigation. Even though the police were fairly sure they knew who caused Crystal's disappearance and how she died, they didn't have enough evidence to make an arrest. The police feared taking their suspect to court and not having enough evidence. If the suspect were to get acquitted, the police couldn't charge them with Crystal's murder again because of double jeopardy. FBI agents and law enforcement agencies across Kentucky joined forces with Crystal's friends, family, volunteers, and missing people organizations to conduct extensive searches at the Houck family farm, a sprawling property spanning 240 acres. The searches continued daily, leaving Crystal's loved ones terrified and grasping for hope. While they hoped to find Crystal alive and well, they truly desired some answers. At the Houck family farm, investigators conducted a thorough search of the ashes of a fire, but no human remains were uncovered. However, in the pile of ashes, remnants of clothing were found. But the investigators were unable to connect these pieces to the case of Crystal's disappearance. The police served multiple search warrants on the Houck family farm, targeting cars and residences. Despite their efforts, none of these searches yielded significant leads or evidence related to Crystal's case. A $100,000 reward was offered for information about Crystal's disappearance, but still no one came forward. Tommy Ballard, Crystal's father, followed every lead he got in Crystal's disappearance. He was determined to find his daughter and was not going to give up. Crystal's disappearance affected Tommy more than it did anyone else who loved her, because in January 1979, his pregnant sister was murdered by her husband and his friend. They shot and beat her, and then set her remains on fire and scattered them on a farm. The men who committed this heinous crime were eventually caught years later, and they were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Despite the challenges he faced, Tommy remained steadfast in his pursuit of Crystal's whereabouts. Tommy followed every lead, no matter how small or insignificant it may have seemed. He canvassed the neighborhood, conducted interviews, and reached out to anyone who might have information. Tommy, determined to find answers about his daughter's disappearance, allocated his savings towards hiring cadaver dogs in a private eye. With each passing day, he kept meticulous records of all the tips he followed and every clue he uncovered. His dedication to the investigation led him to meet frequently with the police to share his findings and seek their guidance. In November 2016, Tommy Ballard took his 11-year-old grandson, Crystal's son, out on an early morning hunting trip on their property. Tommy's wife, Sherry, watched them leave. As they departed, Sherry couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She couldn't help but quickly pray to God, asking for a watchful eye over them in the woods. Sherry returned to her bed, trying to relax. However, only minutes later, a phone call would shatter her peace. As she picked up the receiver, Sherry recognized the voice of her grandson, Crystal's son. His voice was filled with panic and terror. "Mima, Papa's been shot," he cried. Her heart sank. Panic washed over her. She quickly rushed to the bathroom, grabbing clothes along the way. Her grandson was still crying on the phone, his voice trembling with fear, so she reassured him, telling him that she was calling 911. As she quickly dressed, Sherry's mind raced with thoughts of her husband's well-being. When Sherry arrived at the scene, she was immediately overcome with grief. She rushed over to Tommy, shaking him frantically. However, as she did so, she noticed a concerning sight. Blood began pouring out of his nose. The officers and witnesses who had arrived at the scene quickly pulled her off Tommy, so that the medics could work on him. However, Sherry was already aware that her husband was gone. Tommy Ballard was pronounced dead at the scene. Tommy Ballard had been shot one time in the chest. Initially, the police claimed that Tommy's death was the result of a hunting accident. However, Sherry was furious upon hearing this declaration. She insisted that this was no hunting accident, but rather a murder. She exclaimed, "This is my husband, and it's a murder, and you know it." After an investigation into Tommy's death, investigators ruled out the idea that Tommy took his own life as the cause of death, as they determined that his weapon had not been fired. Additionally, the investigators ruled out the involvement of Tommy's 11-year-old grandson in the shooting. Eventually, the Kentucky State Police later informed the public that they were investigating the death as a murder. The Ballard family believes that Tommy was murdered because he was getting too close to uncovering the truth about what happened to his missing daughter. They think the people responsible for hurting Crystal wanted Tommy out of the way, fearing that he might reveal the truth. In 2022, the FBI conducted a 5-day investigation into the disappearance of Crystal. Investigators returned to the Houck family farm, hoping to find more evidence. The FBI's goal was to collect evidence that would help them hold the individual responsible for Crystal's disappearance accountable. Despite not revealing if any items of evidentiary value were recovered from the search, an FBI spokesperson confirmed in October 2022 that the agency would be analyzing all of the evidence collected at the FBI's lab in Quantico. As the investigation into Crystal Rogers' disappearance continued, the Kentucky Attorney General made a crucial decision to appoint a special prosecutor to assist in the prosecution of criminal charges related to the deaths of Crystal Rogers and her father, Tommy Ballard. Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, was aware of the appointment and wholeheartedly supported the decision. She believed this measure was necessary to ensure justice was served in her loved ones' cases. The appointment of a special prosecutor brought a fresh perspective and independent expertise to the case. Sherry Ballard recognized the importance of having a dedicated team of prosecutors focused on unraveling the complex web of evidence and bringing the perpetrators to justice. She believed that by having a dedicated prosecutor, there would be greater attention to detail and a more comprehensive understanding of the case. Sherry Ballard's commitment to seeking justice for Crystal and Tommy was unwavering. The special prosecutor had the necessary resources and knowledge to conduct a thorough investigation and gather the evidence required to present a compelling case in court. In addition to the appointment of a special prosecutor, Sherry Ballard also appreciated the fact that this decision demonstrated the seriousness of the case and the importance of holding those responsible for the deaths of Crystal and Tommy accountable. It sent a clear message that the justice system was taking this matter seriously and was determined to bring justice to the victims' families. In July 2023, a grand jury in Kentucky indicted a 32-year-old man named Joseph Lawson on 2 charges of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in relation to the case of Crystal's disappearance. 2 months later, Crystal's boyfriend, Brooks Houck, was arrested and charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence. The judge set Brooks' bond at $10 million, and he was ordered to stay away from Crystal's family. Brooks Houck was arrested in 2022 for several traffic violations. He was required to pay a series of fines and was released. Many people in Bardstown were overjoyed when Brooks Houck was arrested for Crystal's murder. Although the news was devastating for everyone to come to terms with the reality that Crystal was not just missing but had been killed, there was a sense of satisfaction in knowing that justice would be served. The arrest of Houck brought a sense of closure and relief to those who were affected by Crystal's tragic death. It provided some measure of solace to know that the person who had taken her life was being held accountable for their actions. The community of Bardstown united behind Crystal's family and expressed support and solidarity during this difficult time. They hoped that the arrest would pave the way for justice to be served and that the perpetrator would receive a fair and just punishment. As the investigation continued and more information came to light, the community remained vigilant and hopeful that justice would prevail. Brooks Houck made his first appearance in court 1 month after his arrest in October 2023. However, his appearance was not in person but virtually. The hearing was a crucial moment in the case as prosecutors revealed new information regarding another unsolved murder in Bardstown. The judge asked Special Prosecutor Shane Young if they were looking into any other cases that may be linked to Crystal's case. According to the prosecutor, they were also investigating Tommy Ballard's death, Crystal's father, and felt the 2 murders were connected. In fact, the special prosecutor said they believed they were in possession of the gun that killed Tommy, claiming they purchased the firearm from Nick Houck and were currently testing it, but believed that gun killed Crystal's father. The special prosecutor has claimed that they bought a firearm from Nick Houck, who allegedly used a fake name during the sale. According to the prosecutor, the caliber of the rifle matches the one used to shoot and kill Tommy Ballard. They have mentioned 5 criteria they are examining, claiming that the gun has matched 4 of them so far. Crystal's grandfather and Tommy's father voiced their satisfaction upon hearing the special prosecutors linking the 2 murders in court. They expressed their hope for justice to be swiftly achieved in both cases. However, upon hearing about the allegations put forward by the special prosecutor, Rosemary, Brooks, and Nick Houck's mother refused to answer any questions. Furthermore, during the court hearing, the prosecutor also alleges that the Houck family had secretly recorded the grand jury proceedings. The prosecutor alleged that Brooks Houck's sister, brother, mother, brother-in-law, and mother's boyfriend were all involved in this illicit activity. According to the prosecutor, by secretly recording the proceedings, the Houck family sought to gain an unfair advantage and ensure their stories remained aligned. Attorneys for Brooks Houck filed a request to disqualify the Nelson County judge presiding over the case and request that he be replaced. The attorneys claim that the judge has had a hostile view of Brooks Houck since 2017, which they believe to be biased and unfair. Additionally, the attorneys argue that the bail set at $10 million is excessive and should be reconsidered. The attorneys argue that having a hostile judge on the case will greatly hinder Brooks' ability to receive a fair trial. They contend that the judge's previous comments and actions indicate a clear lack of impartiality. In addition to asking for disqualification, The attorneys also request that the court move swiftly in ruling on this matter, arguing that time is of the essence and that a new, unbiased judge should be put in place as soon as possible to ensure a fair and just outcome. Several weeks later, the Kentucky Appeals Court has ruled that Brooks Houck will remain in jail on a $10 million bond. Additionally, the court has issued a ruling on the case, officially denying Houck's request to dismiss the judge presiding over Brooks' trials. In December 2023, Stephen Lawson was indicted on 2 charges of conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. The media widely reported that Stephen Lawson had a son named Joseph Lawson, who had been arrested on charges related to the disappearance of Crystal. As the rain falls and the night deepens, thank you for being here with me at Radio Night Crime. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the need to stay aware, even in the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the sound of the rain lull you to sleep, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep you company.